All right, so we're going to look at Chapter 10, American Political Culture. So this chapter is really all about the relationship of the person and the government. So that's going to be what makes up the core political values. So the idea of what is your set of beliefs, customs, traditions, and values that define your relationship with the government. All right, and so those include individualism, which is the idea of self responsibility, self decisions, equality of opportunity, free enterprise, the rule of law, limited government, and then need based assistance. So the idea is how much should the government engage with you when it comes to individualism, your own choices? Should you have choices over everything? Are there some things the government should be doing? How much equality of opportunity should exist, does exist, and should the government come in and try to level playing fields? How much should the government engage in free enterprise, which is kind of intervening in the economy? Rule of law, is everybody really supposed to follow the law, or can some people in certain positions and situations skate by and cut some corners? Limited government, how much limited government should there be? And then needs based assistance is where a lot of the debate actually comes from, because this is looking at how much we should actually be helping less fortunate, whether it's people in poverty, people in hard times, the elderly, etc. All right, so basically, the concept and the idea is, right, where do you fall as a Republican? Where do you fall as a Democrat on the different ideas of should corporations have fair and responsibility when it comes to profits? Should there be stricter environmental laws and regulations when it comes to jobs that hurt the economy? Should homosexuality be discouraged by society? So, should we pass laws regarding it? Should we pass laws about marriage? Should governments be wasteful and inefficient? uh, so, unfortunately, it usually falls into that category given the amount of money it spends on things, but that's okay. All right. The next thing is political socialization. The idea is, where do you get the exposure that helps shape your values and your attitudes and your behaviors? Okay. So a lot of it is going to come from your families, right? And then schools and then your peers. That's going to be a huge amount. And then there's going to be civic and religious organizations. If you're really active in churches, if you volunteer community service a lot, these can also be things that influence you. But then there's something called the generational and the life cycle events. The idea is that when you experience certain things in life, they can shift, right, your take on government or your political identity, okay, as well as life stages. You might be one place in college and have feelings about certain things, and that's going to influence you, but maybe you don't go to college and you're working, so you're going to have different takes in that capacity. Same thing with age, retirement, etc. All right, again, it's the idea of, do you trust the government, which is always a debatable thing. Most people, arguably today, don't necessarily. And that all kind of started from good old Nixon. So, as you can notice in this Pew Research graph. Okay, the next thing that kind of influences us is globalization, all right, and the American core values. The idea is that we have increased our interconnectedness between people, business, and countries. Everything is intertwined, okay, and the internet has made this easier, as well as travel. So, what should America's role be on the world stage? This is a huge thing that influences a lot of our political identity. So, should we support the United Nations, which seeks to come to peaceful resolutions between conflicts of different countries? Should we support non governmental organizations that go out and try to aid countries that need some help? Should we trade with everybody or not with everybody? What should we do? All right. But it's always good to remember that the dark side of this is that it is cheaper to make goods outside of the United States. And so that's outsourcing. So it's the idea that companies move certain aspects of their business to places where there's low labor costs and fewer regulations, because we do have more regulations and our society tends to demand a higher pay rate for most labor. All right, so that's all this chapter is. So update your notes, get your KBATs in there, and come to class with any questions.